Lina Bürnelius ist Expertin in Klima- und Landnutzungsfragen und arbeitet als internationale Koordinatorin für die NGO Protect the Forest Sweden. Mit ihrem interdisziplinären Wissen setzt sie sich von der lokalen bis zur globalen Ebene für nachhaltige Entwicklung ein. Ihr Hauptfokus liegt auf dem Schutz, der Wiederherstellung und der klimaverträglichen Bewirtschaftung von Wäldern. Ihr Credo ist das Recht künftiger Generationen auf einen bewohnbaren und gesunden Planeten sowie das Recht indigener Völker, Eingriffe in ihr Land abzulehnen. Ökologische Forstwirtschaft bedeutet für sie, die planetaren Grenzen bei der Deckung der gesellschaftlichen Bedürfnisse zu respektieren. Bürnelius will die Politik bei der Umsetzung internationaler Abkommen in die Pflicht nehmen und so für einen Übergang in eine ökologische Forstwirtschaft sorgen. Neon Green Network präsentiert Lina Bürnelius.
Thank you for having me. On one hand, we are meeting in Vienna today, but on the other hand, we are meeting on this one-of-a-kind floating rock out in space. This is our only house. There is no planet B. We need to start to take action. We are the ones who need to enable a plan B. Business as usual is clearly not working. We urgently need to stop overshooting, exceeding this planet's boundaries. And we urgently need to stop leaving people behind in shortfall. This is not safe. This is not fair. Along our prevailing, very unfair business-as-usual pathway, we, some more than others, have put way too much greenhouse gas emissions up in the atmosphere, and we have safeguarded far too little biodiversity down here on Earth. And as a result, we are speeding towards tipping points, physiological tipping points beyond human control. Domino effects that equal unimaginable amount of even more shortfall. More animals and people will starve, flee, die, and suffer. We are talking about fires, floods, droughts, and crop failures on scales that words to describe them do not even exist yet. I want you to know that every fraction of a degree matter. Every ecosystem saved matter. Every tipping point mitigated matter. Addressing this double trouble, it's about justice. It is about animal rights, it is about human rights, and it's about safety. It all boils down to time. What is the safe thing to do in time? Imagine that you've been diagnosed with cancer and you meet your doctor. He tells it like it is. This is really troublesome. This is a crisis. We do not have cancer fully figured out, but the scientific evidence is clear. It all boils down to time. We have a critical window of opportunity in which we need to act. We need to do this before you reach metastatic state. There's a few do's and don'ts. We need to put you on chemo and radiation and other type of treatments. It will be hurtful. There's a few don'ts. You need to change the way you move around. You need to change what you're eating. You cannot continue to feed this cancer. It will be inconvenient. Imagine your surprise and your relief when the Swedish government swoops in, holding hand with a Swedish company, I might add. And they tell you, this sounds stressful, inconvenient, No need to worry. We have this new technology. It's green, it's fair, it's sustainable, it's certified. Actually, IKEA made it. So you can stay at home. No need to worry. It's an easy pill to swallow. It is first, much later, when you need a fine print of this pill, that you will learn that you will be cancer-free first when you are 110 years old. Far too little, far too late. They did what they always do best. They swoop in, they greenwash you, and they take out the aspect of time. In this metaphor, I just want to be super clear. Moving forward, during my talk, I want you to know that in this metaphor, the one who was diagnosed with cancer was your child. We have, in other words, a very, very unfair and very, very urgent crisis at hand. And we do not have this fully figured out, but the scientific evidence is clear. It all boils down to time. We have a critical window of opportunity in which we need to act. There's a few do's and don'ts. And in sake of time, I'm only going to name a few. But we do need to phase out fossil fuels, some faster than others. We need to restore and protect 30% of the ocean. We need to decrease our energy demand. We need to bring back season to the food store. We need to get rid of fashion seasons in clothing and furniture stores. We need to fundamentally redefine our relationship to land use, to agriculture, and to forests. Forests. I'm going to zoom in and talk about forests' role in this today. You've heard this story before, how big, multi-international mega companies are expanding into this last remaining flourishing, withholding a bedrock of life, astonishing, beautiful forest ecosystems. They silence and threaten and push away indigenous peoples. They are wiping away entire ecosystems. They are backed by the government so they can tear out protection, and then they expand even further on the ground, puncturing the planet's lungs, emptying the carbon storage, wipe away biodiversity and species, all in order to plant monocultures, one crop of one kind, in perfect harvest line, all in order to feed their suppliers this climate bomb of an industry that is producing foremost climate-damaging end products for consumers, foremost in the global north. I don't know how many of you who now thought of the Amazon, but that was the description of my home country, Sweden. The Swedish forestry model is famous for every tree we log, we plant 2 new ones. That specific choice, that specific model, that is the factor with the strongest negative impact on biodiversity. No other Swedish industry poses a greater threat to the survival of species and biodiversity than the Swedish forest industry. The same industry that is also famous for its fossil-free solutions are alone emitting more CO2 than all of Sweden's other terrestrial emission sources are emitting combined. No other Swedish industry has this big carbon footprint. So if you only take away one sentence from my talk here today, it is when it comes to forestry, do not listen to Sweden. But I know it's hard, because they are indeed swooping in everywhere. Their greenwashing is everywhere. They hold in hands with the government everywhere. And that's their main tactic. Holding hands, corruption, and greenwashing. One tactic that they did not come up with on their own, I might add. They just simply stole the fossil fuel and the tobacco company's playbook and they use it against us. Create some doubt. Cherry-pick facts. Shift the baseline. Delay, delay, delay. Greenwash. Hijack the narrative. Rewrite key definitions in laws. Delay, delay, delay. Silence. Threaten. Scale up, divide, and conquer. Start culture wars. Delay, delay, delay. So naturally, a big part of my job is to do all in my power to force this industry into truly sustainable forestry. And I need to add the word truly before sustainable, because sustainable is one of those words which they have hijacked and just filled with greenwashing. But truly, again, sustainable forestry is as simple as following 3 simple rules. Where can we have forestry? How, with what method should we use on land that can be logged? And what should we produce? Because society needs both forestry and products from forests. If you start to follow these simple 3 rules, you will create a win, 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 win for society. You will safeguard carbon stocks. You will have truly functioning carbon sinks. You will safeguard biodiversity. You will safeguard local jobs, clean water, clean air, the ability to learn, mushrooms, berries, recreation, and culture. In a saved forest, in a restored forest, and in a forest where we have ecosystem-based, truly sustainable forestry, all of us can live and thrive and survive. Species can survive, and many can live off the land. You can use the land without abusing the land. Sorry, I need a little bit of water. Now I just outlined briefly what we are standing for and what this truly sustainable forestry means, so that you know what we stand for when we stand up against this industry, because that's what we do. And this is by no means a woman show. It feels really weird to be here alone, given the fact that we are a fast-growing grassroots movement for justice. We are doing all in our power to put a spotlight on Sweden's greenwashed, neo-colonial, globally famous, FSC-certified sustainable forestry model. The same model that systematically break the same 3 rules. They go where they shouldn't go. We all know old-growth forest is a no-go zone. They go there every day. 99 out of 100 times they carry out the most climate and biodiversity harmful tree replanting method. And lastly, and I know it's shocking, but the majority of this precious biomass that they do take out of these ecosystems are burned as energy, as single-use paper, as packaging, and as fuels. Fully informed, they are systematically breaking these rules, and they are moving enormous amount of carbon out of the stock where it belongs into the atmosphere, when it makes our planet even more unsafe and unfair. Sweden isn't the leader on sustainable forestry. We are the leader, though, on greenwashing unsustainable forestry. Now I'm going to zoom in on their favorite greenwashing. So this is something that I hope that you will remember. Due to their model, we are foremost losing forests, not trees. Again, this is an ever-expanding industry on the ground, and forests are not renewable. Forest is an ecosystem that we can protect and restore, but man can only replant trees. Many replanted trees does not form a forest, it forms the opposite. IKEA isn't forest positive. Europe isn't forest positive. We don't have more forests than ever, we have more trees than ever. That is not the same thing. Think of it like this: a soy plantation, not a rainforest. A tulip field, not a meadow. A spruce plantation, not a forest. These plantations are, however, climate bombs. Please note that even if they plant many, many, many trees that grows really, really, really fast, the emissions that were created from their logging practices and from their products are so big that it takes many decades for these biodiversity harmful tree plantations to even begin to take back and start to paying back this enormous carbon debt. Time that we do not have. But the general public still doesn't know this, because this industry has swooped in on enough arenas and they have successfully taken out the aspects of time. The urgency is lost. Me, my friends, and my allies, we look like fools. Alarmist even. And that is what they want. That creates yet another gap, and they can swoop in once again, and business as usual can cash in on yet another quarterly report, and that is the bottom line, told up front. Every day, they are putting their profit over everyone and everything they share this house with. Behind me is a document that proves what I am saying. It's not just my words. This is a document written by the forest industry themselves, and I'm going to read a few words out loud. We are concerned over the short time frames for emission reductions that has been established under the climate regime. If the shorter timeframes were imposed on the forestry sector, these can lead to decisions to preserve carbon stocks in the short term. They know. They know. And if you are still not convinced, I'm also going to read from the last part of this document. Again, this is their own words. A strategic long-term initiative for communicating widely and influencing policy will be required. A key arena is the EU policy processes. And they have been busy. Not only is this industry producing climate-damaging, short-life products out of irreplaceable, non-renewable forest ecosystem, they are defending this climate scam of a model on the European arena. They followed their to-do list, and they were successful. Long story short, they watered down, and they blocked, and they delayed everything related to forest, packaging, energy, etc. And as a result, all of these policies are now just a shell game. They are moving around carbon on paper, and they are increasing the carbon emissions in reality. Society is best described as a bus traveling towards a cliff, and all these so-called climate targets and initiatives and COPs and laws and directives, they are just as insufficient as hitting the brake first when the bus is midair. Because Swedish and Nordic companies and Nordic governments and all their allies, they are so good at what they're doing. They have so many powerful players, so wrapped around their greenwashed fingers that we often put them in the driving seat. The only way to describe what is going on through the northern part of Sweden is to call it for what it is. This is the epicentrum for false climate solutions. Sápmi, home of the indigenous people, is now sacrificed for their green transition. Spoiler alert, the green fuels, the green paper, the green steel, The green mines, the green energy, it's not that green. It's red. Bloody red. In its literal form. Every day they are carrying out human rights violations. I'm going to zoom in on what they are doing to the forest land, protected by all these climate goals and this Green New Deal and all the other directives. After only 60 years, companies that are 60 years young in ecosystems that stood tall since time immortal. After only 60 years of FSC certified sustainable forestry model, as much as 71% of the lichen-rich forests that are crucial for the survival of the reindeer and thus the whole indigenous Sami culture, are already disappeared. 71% of the land that can feed the reindeer have already disappeared. The Sami communities are sounding the alarm. And now I'm going to read a quote from a Sami friend of mine. The reindeer are starving. We are slowly dying. And by we, I mean all of us. You as well. The reindeer have survived here in this harsh Arctic climate since time immortal. Not even the reindeer can survive any longer. You should all be alarmed. But this industry, they just continue. They pick up their playbook once again, and then they start yet another culture war. They scale up their divide and conquer, all with the aim to silence science-based demands, campaigns, and foremost, silence indigenous people's knowledge. Knowledge that could be easily translated into one very, very telling statistics. 80% of the biodiversity left here on our only house can be found in territories where indigenous people have some sort of stewardship or say. So next time, because there will be a next time, someone has a green idea, and someone managed to create a little doubt, always side with the indigenous peoples and not with extractivists. Protect our protectors. Especially now when I'm going to repeat one of the first sentences of my talk, because we have put way too much greenhouse gas emissions in the atmosphere and we have safeguarded far too little biodiversity down here on Earth in order to navigate ourselves as safely as possible during this double trouble. We need to safeguard more forests. There's no way around it. There has to be a joint understanding that old-growth forest is a no-go zone. Old-growth forests still have the biodiversity intact. If they are allowed to remain, they also have the carbon stock intact. And it has not been replaced by a false planted sink. And we do not want forestry to cease to exist. As I told you, we want them to follow the 3 rules. Where? How? What? They, on the other hand, are fighting tooth and nail. Oh my God, tooth and nail to get away with expansion, monoculture, and burning. How do you stop someone who has their mind set on harmful expansion? You stand in their way. And when they use their playbook against you, you stand your ground. That is how every peaceful civil society movement have ever worked in the past. Peaceful protesting and telling the truth. We are right, they are wrong. The carbon belongs in the ground, so we stand our ground. Because the house is on fire. We can't burn ourselves out of this heating crisis. We cannot continue to burn fossil fuels, but we cannot listen to the forest industry and simply make a fuel switch from fossil fuels to biofuels. We cannot simply make a switch from single-use plastic to single-use paper. We need to break free from short-lived, from throwaway, from single-use, from burning. Our house is on fire, and not only did the arsonist silence the smoke alarm, they left the kid inside, and then they fed the babysitter sleeping pills and go back to sleep greenwashing lullabies. Green, certified, sustainable, replanted, compensated. Our house is still on fire, so we need to be the smoking alarm, the fire alarm. They can call me what they want, an alarmist even. We also need you. Support your local justice group. Take part in any type of restoration project. Join the youth climate marches. And when you are ready, advocate, speak up, write open letters, sign open letters, set up petition, reach out to traditional media, especially local media. Share on social media, join workshops, join protests in the street or in the forest or whatever. Find a topic that's close to your heart and show up. I know it can be scary to start to take action. We all know what we are up against. But I can tell you something personal and magnificent. You have very, very little to fear. When you start taking action, the one you are becoming will catch you, as will we. Join the justice movement. Thank you.
Vielen herzlichen Dank, Lina Bernelius.